Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here to break down all the things happening in pop culture and interviewing the people that make it pop. Today's guest is a staple in both country music and the LGBTQ plus community, not something you hear every day. She has broken down barriers of the good old boy country music industry with her EP Outlaw Love, and her latest song, Party Wherever We Go, is the new theme song for SEC Nation. Please welcome to The Gist, Brooke Eden. Hey, Brooke.
Hey, so good to be here.
It's so good to have you. We were just chatting. We have a mutual friend, Cassidy Pope,
Yes.
and she turned me on to you and just your story, and I was so excited to have you on The Gist because I really think that it's something a bit unusual, especially in Nashville and in the country music space. And I also know that you and your wife are expecting a baby
We are.
very soon.
Yeah, we're 32 weeks today. So yeah, only like 8 weeks away from our little baby boy being here. So yeah, it's so exciting, and I love Cass. We've known each other since we were 9 years old, and it's so fun to like grow up with someone in music and then, like actually do it as an adult and make it your career and do that with someone that you've been doing that with since you were 9 years old. It's super cool. So, but yeah, we're pregnant with our first baby. My wife is carrying, and we both went through egg retrieval last year. So it's been a journey, but we are so grateful to be here.
Yeah, I know you shared your story with people on all of that, but how did you guys kind of come to that decision? Because obviously, like in gay relationships, me and my husband, we've talked about it too. Like, how are we going to decide like whose baby? How do we kind of do all of that? What were those conversations like for you?
Yeah. Well, I think that for us, we have always felt like so connected from the day we met. We have always wanted a family. We've always talked about that. We've been together for 8.5 years now. So we've had a lot of time to, be ourselves as, a
Yeah.
couple. And we've known forever that we've wanted to create a family, but, of course, how? Like what are the steps? And so
Yeah.
for us, we had a lot of years to figure it out, but we basically started with, anatomy. We went to our IVF specialist, and
hmm
we have the same doctor, and we would go into separate offices of the same doctor's office, and Hilary, my wife, would walk out and be like, oh my god, they said everything was great, and how was your appointment? And I was like, not so great. And so
Oh no.
basically, yeah, and so basically I had a ruptured appendix when I was in the 4th grade, so my pelvic kind of there was some like there has been some havoc in there, some trauma.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the doctor was like, we have 2 uteri. This is amazing. Hilary,
hmm
how do you feel about carrying? And she has always wanted to carry, whereas I have never wanted to carry, but always wanted to be a mom. So it's kind of
Yeah.
wild how the universe works itself out in that way. I remember growing
Yeah.
up and being like, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't want to carry a baby, but like, I so badly want to be a mom. And, the universe kind of just figured it out for me and met the love of my life. And life hack, marry your surrogate.
Yeah.
uh, but no, we both went through egg retrieval, and basically we left it up to chance. We both went
hmm
through egg retrieval last year. We both got embryos. We have we have the same donor. Turned them into
hmm
embryos, and then we just asked our fertility clinic to put in the most viable embryo. So we
Okay.
ourselves don't actually even know whose DNA is the baby was made from. And we don't really
Oh
care. We're
wow.
just excited to have a little one and raise him together and, be his mamas. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was our process. The choosing a donor was like a whole nother process in and of itself. That was,
I'm sure. Yeah.
we both knew we wanted someone like a random person, like not someone that we were connected to. That
Right.
was really important to us, but we also wanted to know like everything about that donor. So that was a little interesting, but it's amazing that we actually signed up for 3 different sperm banks, and this donor showed up. It was like June 25th in 20 of last year, and we were
Hmm.
getting our rainbow nails painted for New York Pride, and we were sitting in the nail
Amazing.
salon, and my wife, instead of like being on Instagram or whatever, she was now on these sperm banks looking through profiles,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
she found this donor who just had a perfect bill of health. He was really smart. He was super adventurous, and he looked like our son. Like when we were like, if we could put our genetics together, like this would be what our son would look like. And
Oh,
so
wow.
she kind of like showed the profile to me, and I was just like, wow, this is wild. Like I like started crying. And she
Oh,
started crying, and she was like, okay, like, is there anything missing from this profile for you? And I was like, no, he's literally like perfect. Like we found the one. Like, we found the donor.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that was an interesting process in and of itself, but we just feel so lucky and grateful for the process, and we feel like we it's brought us even closer, and we're just so excited to bring a little baby boy into this world.
yeah, it's amazing. And I love the story. And you guys, I think, are due like November 7th. Is that right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And my birthday is November 2nd. So you're going to have another Scorpio, bringing another Scorpio into the world. So
Yes.
we need more of us, because everyone thinks that we're like bad people, or that we like,
What?
that we sting. I think that's what they say.
Here's what I'll
So
tell
I feel like we
you.
have a bad rep.
I okay, so almost all of our best friends are Scorpios. It just kind of happened that way. And I will say what I know about Scorpios is y'all are the most loyal people on the planet. Almost
Yes.
loyal to a fault. So I am super excited to be bringing another little Scorpio into this world.
Yes. Thank you. Cause yeah, we get a bad rep, but I think like, ultimately it is like, we're a little, maybe we have like our guard up a little bit more than most people in the beginning, but ultimately if you break it down, I think we are very loyal. So
Yeah.
very excited for you to be bringing him into the world.
Aw.
And I love telling your story, because I think it's like so important, especially right now with like the political climate and the
Yeah.
things that are happening to women's bodies. And there, it wouldn't be possible for you guys to be able to go down this journey without IVF and being able to do that. And so I just think it's really important that you are able to share that story, and that you are sharing that story so openly, because like I said, like it wouldn't happen otherwise. And so I'm
Really.
so grateful that you are using your voice and your platform to share your story.
Thank you. I think for us, it was really important because we also were searching for that information when we were trying to make decisions. So once we had
Hmm.
started, to make our decisions and feel really good about it, we were like, it's important for us to share how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously, as I mentioned, being gay, and I know you play a lot of the pride festivals, and you're like very open about your sexuality and how that kind of is you, and that's as you should be. But you're also in this kind of country music space, which can be very, not, it can be not as inclusive of
Mhm.
those things. What was that experience like for you? And ultimately, what led you to, coming out, knowing that you wanted to be in this country industry?
Yeah. Well, I literally grew up in the honky tonks singing with my dad's band.
Hmm.
My dad is a drummer in a local country band in my hometown in Florida. And so I grew
Amazing.
up in the country music world. By the time I was 12, I was, opening up for the country acts that were coming through my hometown. And I never really looked back on it on a different genre. Like I have always sang country.
Right.
um, I moved to Nashville when I was 22, and I just knew I wanted to sing country. At that point, I did not know I was queer. I was suspecting that I was, but I also
Hmm.
grew up in a very conservative religious household, religious family. I went to a private Baptist
Right.
school until I was a sophomore in high school. And so, I think that people talk about queer people like brainwashing children. I was 100%
Mm.
brainwashed to be conservative and Christian. Um,
Right.
and if I think that if I would have known that there was like another option for me, I would have just been able to love myself sooner. And
Mm.
so it wouldn't have made me like, I was born in like the most straight environment possible. And I still turned out as me. So it I just think that there's just really they have no like ground to stand on to, try to
Yeah.
say that. But yeah, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, totally thinking I would like meet some like male country singer and get married and be Tim and Faith, like that's just kind of what I
Yeah.
was raised to believe. Um,
Right.
and then I got here and I was dating some like male country singers and just like not
Right.
feeling the vibe and all the things. And so I was just like very focused on music. Like my life is music. I, dated guys my whole life and I just never felt like I would get married. I never felt that like in love feeling that I watched all of my friends have. And so I just
Mm.
kind of thought like, my goal is to, win Grammys and, CMA awards and like I kind of pushed like relationships and all of that to the side. So fast
Yeah.
forward to I got a record deal and a publishing deal, and all of my dreams are coming true. And it's my very first week of radio tour where the record label puts you up and kind of pairs you with someone at the record label who takes you around to all the country radio stations and introduces you to country radio. And that
Right.
person that the record label paired me up with was my wife. So I
Amazing.
get on this tour bus to go on radio tour, and I meet this woman, Hilary Hoover, who was my rep and also like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm crushing so hard and this is so weird. Like, I didn't just,
Yeah.
I like would have crushes on girls, but it was never anything that I was like, really felt like I was gonna, like follow up on kind of. I did have a
Right.
girlfriend before I met
Yeah.
Hill. But it was a very toxic relationship and it was like, okay, well, if
Mm.
this is what it's like to be with a girl, then and this is not for me, you know?
Oh, right. Hmm.
So I meet Hill and we care about all the same things. It is like, I'm a pretty, cynical person maybe when I meet people like you're almost guilty
Hmm.
until proven innocent in a way. um
Yep. Yep.
And with her, I just immediately trusted her. I felt like I had known her in like every lifetime. And I don't know, I just felt like I knew her. And that was very, very wild for me. It's not like a normal thing for me to feel that way. So yeah, we just really bonded that week. And I mean, I knew by like the third day that I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I'm in love with this person and this is not good. Like she works at my record label
Amazing.
and yeah, this really couldn't be worse for me here. Um, and then 2 weeks later, she called me and was like, do you think our relationship is weird? And I was just like, I have never felt this way about someone in the sense that like we're both very busy. Like we were both,
Hmm.
on the road nonstop, 5 days a week, most weeks, both of us. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to spend all of my free time with her. Like I wanted, when something exciting happened, I wanted to call her. When something bad happened, I wanted to talk it out with her. Like it was just like this
Yeah.
immediate connection where like she was my person already. And I was like, this is not
Yeah.
supposed to be this way. Well, turns out she felt the same way. And basically we decided to just, whatever
Do it.
was going to happen. And we're just going to have to
Yeah.
figure it out along the way because basically like we couldn't do life without each other at that point. And we've been together ever
Yeah.
since.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, at that point it was very scary because obviously we had this just attraction to each other where it was so healthy and it was so like we just wanted the best for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know like where this was going to lead. And turns
Mm-hmm.
out at that time, my record label found out about us and told us that we
Mm.
could not be in an open relationship if I wanted to keep my record deal and keep my career in country music. Basically, you know, we had to be completely quiet, and they told us we could be in a relationship in our own house, and that's it. So,
Mm.
you know, for me, here I am, like really in love for my first time. I want to shout it from the rooftops and write about it and sing about
Yeah.
it and talk about it on stage and talk about it to everybody. And I can't, you know, like I'm feeling the feeling that most people get to feel at 16, except I'm an adult and these are real
Yeah.
feelings and I have to be completely silent about it. And so does she. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was really, really, really difficult. And we stayed in the
Was
closet.
she open? Was she out?
She was out before we met. And then, you know,
So she had to go back in the closet, kind of.
exactly, which is also not
Yeah.
fun when your person is super hot and doesn't necessarily come off like, you know, she's not like a stereotypical queer woman. And
Yeah.
you know, she's out on all these things with radio guys who are just like, you know, oh, Hillary Hoover, she's
Mm-hmm.
such a hottie, and she can't even say she's in a relationship, you know. So,
Ugh.
and neither could I, and that's really hard as an artist because you know, especially in country music, you are telling your truth. You know, that's like what it's all
Mm-hmm.
about. It's all about your life and like authenticity and country music, three
Yeah.
chords and the truth. And here I was, you know, going on stage, talking to radio people, being in interviews like this one, and having to talk about my music as if it was about a guy. And that is just so
Right.
hard. Like you're so afraid you're going to end up saying the wrong pronoun. God forbid, you know? Um,
Mm.
and basically, it just got to a point where I really felt like I was living two lives. I kind of went on
Mm-hmm.
stage more like robotically. It wasn't even very fun for me anymore. I was just like, this is my job and this is what I'm doing. And then I get to go home and be myself. And that manifested, my mental health manifested into my physical health, and I ended up getting really sick. I ended up
Mm.
with anemia and ulcers,
Oh
and I actually had to get off the road completely and heal my
my
body.
gosh.
Yeah. Um, so it's really, really wild how, you know, your mental health becomes your physical health and um, you know, to live so inauthentically for so many years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it really takes a toll on your mind and your body. And so I ended up having to get off the road, and then 2020 happened, and everyone was kind of off the road. And kind of all of
Right.
the BS of the music industry and all the things that you're like supposed to keep up and, you know, care about, all of that just became like, this doesn't even matter anymore, you know? And
Right.
really, like, it became about, you know, living your life like fully because you never know. Like, it was just like live like you're dying almost, you know? And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I was reading a book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed, and she
Mm-hmm.
was talking about integrity and just like simply defined the word integrity as, you know, a person being to the world who they are in their home. And I realized in that moment that I was living
Right.
my life with no integrity. I was making myself sick. I was keeping my person in the closet and not letting her live her life to the fullest. And I wasn't getting to live my
Right.
life to the fullest. Who am I doing this for? Like, this is just bad on all accounts. Like, there's nothing good coming from this. And
Yeah.
so it was just in that moment, I was just like, babe, I need to come out. And she obviously was so excited. She was like, it's about damn time.
Yeah.
Like, let's go, babe.
Yeah.
And then right after that, I like called my management, and then my management and I called my record label. And at this point, my record label had been bought up by BMG, which is just the most incredible work environment, label experience I've ever had. They really let artists be artists
Hmm.
and let us be ourselves. And so when I was like, hey, I want to come out, I want to, put music out, I want Hilary to be in music videos. Like, I
Yeah.
am a country artist through and through. And just because I'm gay, that doesn't make me not a country artist. And
Right.
I think that there are a lot of gay people who love country music, but have felt so excluded from it for such a long time because they didn't have anyone singing about their love. They didn't see anyone that looked like them. So they felt like, well, I don't belong here.
Right.
And I felt that way. And I was just like, hold on. I actually have the opportunity right now to create that space for people like me. And I know that
Hmm.
there are so many people who grew up like I did on country music, loving Jesus, and love country, and are queer. And like, there was
Yeah.
no one there for us. And the label had my back, my management had my back, and we were just like, let's do this. So in 2021, I came out with Hill, and we came out with a few music videos that had her in it. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was kind of like, do or die. It was kind of like one of those things where for me, I knew it was a big leap and kind of, a risk. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like, I didn't care. I just needed to
Right.
be myself. And if country music couldn't accept me, then I needed to go. But
Right.
if they could accept me even a little bit, and we could start this journey together to create a more inclusive space for people like me in country music, then that's what we were going to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
that we started
And
that in 2021.
yeah, that's amazing. And and I mean, what a story to just how you guys met and then had to kind of keep this spark. I mean, it sounds like you guys were instantly connected and had like this very deep kind of love
Yeah.
that you just then had to hide, which can also, I'm sure, take a toll on the relationship too,
Mhm.
because you're now hiding something that you feel, but then it's like, but we can't share it with anyone because of what the perception may be. And I think what's so great about you coming out and being this is like, you're not the first artist that has come out, but I think that, as you said, there are not a lot of people who are queer and in the community who have a lot of people to look at and say, I relate there, right? And
Yes.
your brand, I mean, you talked about Hilary, but also you, like, you guys are like these hot girls. You guys are clearly lipstick. You guys are, and sometimes like, there's stereotypes about like, if I'm this, I must be a lesbian, or if, or this artist might be a lesbian because of the way she looks, but you don't like fit that description. And so you're giving kind of even more of a platform to people that are like, wait, I have these feelings. And now like, so does Brooke. And, we like, I can be just like her and I can explore those feelings and I can find love like she's found. And, and then so I think it's just always wonderful when people do live their authentic selves. And I think it's so, you touched on this, is like, it's so wild that oftentimes in country it doesn't feel very inclusive, but it is really the most authentic genre. I mean, I talk a lot about like pop music with artists that I've had on the podcast, and they talk about like, yeah, sometimes our pop music, when I write music, doesn't have to always tell a story or always make a lot of sense. Like the lyrics don't have to. It's more about what is the beat and is it a catchy hook. And but with country, you're really telling a story. And if you're not telling your real story, then why are you doing it at all? And so I'm so glad that you're able to finally just like tell your authentic, real story through your music and the visual that comes with it. And now with even your personal life, sharing that you are having a baby. It's so amazing.
Thank you so much. I feel really grateful to be in a time in country music where I feel safe to do this. I feel safe enough to be my authentic self and help with other queer artists to create this space where people feel safe being themselves, coming to a country concert, being in the country music world. Yeah, I feel really lucky to be in country music at this specific time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the world is shifted, and you talked about it kind of during 2020 and the time of COVID. Like, there was so many decisions that people were making
Hmm.
that were like, I mean, you said live like you're dying. It was like, what are we going to do if this thing doesn't go away? Or are we going to be locked up inside? And like, and there's so much that comes with that. And so I think the industry and the country, like country music artists, and it really forced people to take a look inward. I mean, with Black Lives Matter and other things that happened during that time,
Yes.
it really just everyone started looking within themselves and saying, like, maybe we all need to do a little bit better. And I think that country music has come a long way. I think it still has a long way to go, but I think that
Yes.
it has come a long way since then. So, and you're definitely,
Absolutely.
paving the way.
That's very kind of you to say. There are more than a handful of us now that are here and queer in country music,
Yes.
um, and it's so exciting. It's exciting that I can walk into a room these days and know that there are other queer country artists who are trying to get their foot in the door, and like trying to get people to hear them, and they're hearing them, and
Hmm.
it's just, I think, for inclusivity in general, in country music right now, there's a big leap toward kind of country music. To me, is like, okay, we're in America. Country music is pretty
Hmm.
innately American, and it should be a
Yep.
reflection of our country. And right now,
Right.
it's not a reflection of our country. It's a reflection of white straight
Yeah.
people in our country. And so
Hmm.
I think that we are very quickly moving forward. And like you said, there is
Yeah.
so much further to go. Um, Yet we are so much further than we were 3 to 5 years ago. And so even just
Yeah.
that amount of time, which in the grand scheme of things is such a small amount of time, I've seen such a radical progression and mindset change, and just people opening up their hearts to be like, oh, okay, maybe I need to look at this again, um,
Hmm.
and that's really hopeful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also don't even probably know how you're impacting people by telling your story. Cause, we talked a little bit about like the IVF portion, and, obviously, again, like this is a big political year. And it's interesting. I've had conversations about, some of the views on women's bodies and abortion rights and things like that. And people don't even know that IVF plays a part in some of those same laws. And they're like, they just think they're hyper focused on abortion
Yeah,
and where they might stand on that. And so it's really interesting when you start to actually say, like, but that this also is impacted. And then when you start to take that a little bit further of like, hey, that person that wouldn't have their child if they didn't, like, if they weren't able to have access to these things.
totally.
And it really starts to open up minds, and people just like don't even think about it. And so again, like, you being able to share your story, it's going to touch people in all kinds of ways. And all you have to do is be you. And that's what's so beautiful about kind of like what you're doing. um,
It's super cool.
but I know that you also are featured in the Rebel Country film, which premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. Tell me a little bit about that, and like, what is that sort of story that you're telling there?
Yeah, so Rebel Country is, it's there's a lot of different artists that are in the film. Jelly Roll,
Hmm.
Breland, Blanco Brown, and they're everyone in that film is doing things differently. Some because
Yeah.
we have to, we look different, or we come from a different environment. I mean, Jelly Roll was in jail for years, and look at him
Right.
now. It's incredible to
Yeah.
see these kind of like victory dances for, these people who are incredibly talented, but maybe 10 years ago would have never gotten a shot because they would take one look at them and be like, oh, you're a criminal, or oh, you're black,
Yeah.
oh, or
Yeah.
you're gay. And Rebel
Yeah.
Country is
And
like,
it didn't align with country. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And yet these are these are people who have incredible stories to tell. And for such a long time, we were missing those stories from country music. And, it's been so cool to watch Jelly do his thing and
Hmm.
inspire so many people. Breland too, like he's a
Yeah.
good
Amazing.
friend and just such a cool person. And it's really cool to see in this film kind of the rise. And
Hmm.
it's a story of rebellion. It's a battle cry. It's these people
Hmm.
saying we're not going to stay silent anymore, um and look at us go. It's a really cool film.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the story of you guys, even almost less rebels. Maybe it's seen as rebels, but really it's just like you guys paving your own way and changing the story and the narrative within country music, because all of you
Absolutely.
have a unique story that traditionally wouldn't have fit the country mold of what a country artist was. And now it's like country looks a little bit different, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
comparing it to it's American music. So we should look like America, and like the makeup of our country is
Yeah.
not one type of person. So
Not at all.
it's fun. I love seeing that there's all these platforms and these opportunities to keep sharing and amplifying those types of stories, because it is really important. And then, like you said, like seeing Jelly Roll, we just had Alexandra Kay on. A couple of weeks ago, and she is opening for him on the tour. And I mean, it's this massive tour, and she was just telling me all about it, and I was like, that's amazing that Jelly Roll is having this huge success story after his kind of after the life that he lived, which a lot of people like don't get a lot of second chances in that kind of way.
Totally.
And so it's wonderful to kind of see that. I'm looking forward to checking out Rebel Country and hearing more about your guys' story.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so now let's talk about the new song, and SEC Nation theme song. Are you a football fan?
Oh yeah. Um, yeah.
Okay.
So I went to University of Florida, which is part of the SEC. And when
Yep.
I got to school, I had no idea. Like I met Tim Tebow like my second week of school, and I asked him why he was so tall. Like I knew nothing, right? Like nothing. And so then, after 4 years of being in the SEC, at an SEC school, it was like I was like gun ho. I love football, and
Yeah.
then I met my wife, and my wife calls the plays before the ref calls the play. Like,
Oh wow.
yes, I was like, I love football, and then I watched one game with her, and I was like, oh, I love to tailgate. Like she
Yeah.
knew everything, and so obviously we've been together for 8.5 years now, and now I know everything about football. Yeah, huge football fans. So when we
So,
got this call, um, for me to be the new voice of SEC Nation, it was like just the alignment of it was super, super cool. Then they sent me the
yeah.
song, and the song is just incredible. It's
Fun.
such a hype
Yeah.
song. Yeah, it's so fun. It is
Yeah.
the perfect tailgate song. And it just felt like the perfect kind of full circle moment for me to get to do that. So yeah, it's been so fun. I got to go to the first Florida game at my alma mater, and got to
Hmm.
intro the song, and the first time that it played to open SEC Nation. So yeah,
That's
it's been super awesome.
that's awesome. And are you more of a college football fan, or is it just like all football?
I love football, like period.
Okay.
Yeah, for a long time I was like pretty primarily SEC just because that's what I knew, and I knew the
Hmm.
teams and um, all the rivalries and all that stuff. But then once I met my wife, she was a big NFL fan. So
Okay.
she grew up in Indianapolis, so she's a big Colts fan. And then we live in Tennessee and Nashville and have the Titans right here in our city. So I've gotten
Yep.
to do some national anthems with them. And so, Titans fans. I grew up in Florida, so like some Miami Dolphins
Yeah.
ties there. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I love like I will pretty much watch like any football that's on TV. I
All of it.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, so your weekends are pretty booked for the fall.
Yeah, especially like yeah, especially when it's like a little cozy outside and um
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's super super fun. Some chili and some cinnamon rolls and some football. It's super fun. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Well, it is a fun song. I mean, I know it like, it ultimately like talks about football and SEC. But it's like it is kind of like a party jam. So, I mean,
It,
it's definitely one to check out. So, I think it's a really fun song that you got to do.
yes, I agree. It's a total party jam.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us now kind of like what's next for you. Obviously, the EP came out last year. Are we getting a full album, new music? Tell us what's kind of next for Brooke Eden.
Yes, new music. I am like probably the most excited I've ever been for this next chapter of music. I have been working with this producer that I love, and we're creating the sound that we're calling honky tonk pop. And
Love.
it's very catchy, it's very danceable. You know, I grew up in a line dancing bar, so there will be some line dances that go along with these songs. I also,
Fun.
yeah, I also have one of my favorite songs I've ever gotten to be a part of writing. It's called "Kissing for the Cameras," and that is a next part of this journey in this chapter as well. So I have a group of songs, and I don't know if it will be an EP or an album or singles or how we're going to do it yet, but
Yeah.
I am so excited. I debuted two of the songs at a UK country festival that I played 2 weeks ago. And that was just to see the reaction from the audience was just super, super cool. And so, yeah, I'm really excited for this next chapter of music.
That's awesome. So is this a 2025 project or are people going to get to hear it before the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it's a 2025 project. Something obviously I've been working on this year, but everything takes time, and especially if you want to do it
Of
right,
course.
it takes time. And
Yeah.
so for me, I want to make sure that we have, the right runway to set things up properly, and I'm in no rush. So yeah,
Yeah.
we may be able to get into the recording studio this year, but the music you guys will be hearing in 2025. Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's very exciting. Honky tonk pop it's going to be the sound of 2025, I guess.
Let's go.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy that we got to do this. And like I said, like we have Cassidy as a mutual friend. I feel like we must have like crossed paths at some point, but we definitely need to like more intentionally hang and chat more because we clearly love the same people. We
Yeah.
have very similar stories. And I'm so grateful that you stopped by to share your story because I think it's a really important one to tell right now.
I
Um,
could not agree more.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. Yeah. And before we go, tell folks where they can find you and stay up to date with you.
Yeah. All social media platforms, Brooke Eden Music.
Perfect. Um, well, definitely follow Brooke and her story. And congrats again to you and your wife. A
Thank
baby
you.
is going. I mean, I don't know why I even asked if you're releasing music. You're releasing a baby, and that is going to be your focus for a little while. So you're going to be a mom, and then you're going to get to tell us all about it with your new music next year. But yeah, Brooke, thank you so much for stopping by, and can't wait to hear all the new stuff. And for all of you, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out Brooke. And you can hear her at all of the college football SEC games with a party wherever we go. It's out now. And yeah, thanks so much for listening. And until next time, bye.